The first signs came in the form of silence. Every satellite dish on Earth simultaneously lost their signals, replaced by an eerie static that made the world's leading scientists break out in cold sweats. Dr. Sarah Chen, director of the Global Space Observation Network, knew immediately that this was no natural phenomenon. She had spent 20 years preparing for this moment, though she had hoped it would never come. Multiple objects detected decelerating from FTL speeds, her AI assistant reported, its usual calm voice carrying an undertone of urgency. Size estimates suggest capital ships, Director. Largest vessel approximately 12 kilometers in length. Sarah's fingers flew across her haptic interface, bringing up live feeds from observatories worldwide. The objects were massive, their hulls gleaming with an impossible metallic sheen that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. These weren't the slow, chemical-driven rockets of human spaceflight. These were the products of a civilization that had mastered the fundamental forces of the universe. Within hours, the Meridian Federation made their first broadcast. Their ambassador, a towering figure with crystalline features that seemed to shift like liquid mercury, appeared on every screen on Earth. "People of Terra," it began, its voice translated into perfect English through some unknown means. "Your world has been identified as a Class 4 resource planet, containing critical quantities of element 775, essential for sustainable faster-than-light travel. The Federation requires immediate access to your planetary resources." The world's governments scrambled to respond, but Sarah Chen knew something they didn't. For the past decade, she had led a classified project studying precisely what the aliens were after. Element 775, as they called it, was Earth's unique gift, a naturally occurring quantum-stable element that formed only under Earth's specific geological conditions, and humanity had already learned to harness its power. In the secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Sarah met with the Emergency Response Council. General Maya Rodriguez, the recently appointed head of Earth's Unified Defense Force, studied the holographic projections of the alien fleet. "They think we're primitive," she said, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "That's our advantage." "We've been monitoring their communications," Sarah added, pulling up encrypted data streams. "They're not as unified as they want us to believe. The Federation is an alliance of convenience, held together by their monopoly on FTL travel. A monopoly we're about to break." The council chamber erupted in worried murmurs. Sarah understood their concern. Humanity was about to reveal its greatest secret, one they had kept even from themselves. Only a handful of people knew that the quantum computing revolution of the past 5 years wasn't just good fortune or natural progress. It was the result of careful research into element 775 and the quantum properties that made it so valuable. "They've given us 48 hours to surrender our mining rights," General Rodriguez announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I suggest we use that time to demonstrate why that would be a mistake." Sarah nodded, pulling up the schematics for Project Oracle. The Federation's ships use a standardized quantum communication network. They believe it's unbreakable because it relies on element 775. But we've spent years studying it, understanding it. We can do more than just break their network. We can turn it against them. The next day, as the Federation's deadline approached, Earth appeared to be preparing for surrender. Military forces stood down, governments issued statements of cooperation, and mining rights were being drafted. But deep beneath the surface, in hardened bunkers across the globe, humanity's real response was taking shape. Sarah stood in the control room of Project Oracle, watching as the quantum processors spun up to full power. The room hummed with energy as arrays of element 775 crystals, grown in secret facilities, aligned themselves with the alien fleet's communication network. "They never considered that we might have already mastered what they came to steal," Sarah said softly, her hand hovering over the activation sequence. "They'd never imagined we'd keep it secret, waiting for a moment like this." General Rodriguez's voice came through the secure channel. "All defense systems are ready, Dr. Chen. On your mark." Sarah took a deep breath, thinking of all the years of preparation, all the secrets kept, all leading to this moment. The Federation thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would hand over their planet's resources without a fight. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. "Project Oracle, initiating quantum override sequence," Sarah announced, her voice steady despite the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. "Let's show them what humanity can do." As her fingers pressed the activation sequence, the first shot in humanity's fight for independence wasn't fired from a gun. It was transmitted through the very network the Federation thought unbreakable. And in that moment, the balance of power in the galaxy began to shift. The Federation flagship's bridge erupted in chaos as their quantum networks collapsed. High Commander Vextel's crystalline features fractured with rage as system after system went dark. His most advanced fleet, pride of the Federation, was being systematically dismantled by a species that shouldn't even have mastered spaceflight. "Impossible," he hissed, his translucent fingers dancing across control surfaces that no longer responded. "They're primitives. They couldn't possibly." "Sir," his second-in-command interrupted, her metallic scales reflecting the emergency lighting. "We're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. They're using element 775 technology." On Earth, Sarah Chen watched with grim satisfaction as Project Oracle's quantum override cascaded through the Federation fleet. Each ship's quantum communication network wasn't just being disabled, it was being reprogrammed. Years of careful study into element 775's properties had given humanity an understanding that the Federation, for all its technological advancement, had never achieved. "Status report," General Rodriguez demanded, her hologram flickering in the command center. "Phase 1 complete," Sarah responded, studying the streams of data flowing across her screens. "Their ships are cut off from Central Command. More importantly, we now have access to their database, everything they know about element 775, every technological secret they've kept from their client species. It's all ours." But the Federation wasn't about to surrender without a fight. Despite losing their quantum networks, their ships still possessed enough conventional weaponry to reduce Earth's surface to ash. Vextel proved this point by launching the first kinetic strike, a massive projectile aimed at one of Earth's largest cities. The projectile never reached its target. Instead, it disappeared into what appeared to be a localized distortion in space-time itself. General Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile as she watched the Federation commander's reaction through their now compromised video feeds. "Did you really think," she broadcast directly to Vextel's bridge, "that we would announce our capabilities without having defenses in place?" The defensive system that had just saved millions of lives was another application of element 775 technology, one that even Sarah Chen hadn't known about until recently. Project Aegis, as it was called, used precisely tuned quantum fields to redirect matter through microscopic wormholes. The Federation's projectile had just been transported into deep space, harmlessly dissipating its energy among the stars. In his private quarters aboard the flagship, Vextel received an encrypted transmission from the Federation Council. The crystalline beings that served as his superiors were visibly agitated, their forms shifting rapidly between states of matter. "This cannot be allowed to stand," the council leader declared. "If word spreads that a primitive species has mastered element 775 technology to this degree, our authority will be questioned. Every subjugated world will rise up. The Federation itself could collapse." "Understanding, lords," Vextel responded, bowing his head. "What are your orders?" "Initiate Protocol Omega. Better to destroy this world and its resources than allow this knowledge to spread." But even as the Federation prepared to implement their desperate final measure, humanity was several steps ahead. Sarah Chen's team had already decrypted the Protocol Omega files from the Federation database. They knew exactly what was coming. "They're going to try to trigger a quantum cascade failure," Sarah explained to the Emergency Council, using their remaining element 775 reserves to create a chain reaction that would render Earth uninhabitable. It's their scorched Earth policy, literally. Can we stop it? General Rodriguez asked, her hologram leaning forward intently. Sarah's response was interrupted by Dr. James Wilson, her longtime colleague and head of theoretical applications. Stop it. We can do better than that. He projected a complex series of equations into the air between them. We can reverse it. Every joule of energy they try to use against us will strengthen our quantum defense grid instead. As the Federation fleet began positioning for their final attack, humanity's hidden advantages continued to multiply. Each attempt to destroy Earth only revealed more of the Federation's weaknesses. Each desperate measure provided more data for humanity's quantum computers to analyze and counter. The tide wasn't just turning. It had never really been in the Federation's favor at all. They had come expecting to find primitives, and instead discovered masters of the very technology they had used to dominate the galaxy. But humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their technology. It was their ability to adapt, to think creatively, to turn their enemies' strength against them. As Sarah Chen prepared to implement the final phase of humanity's defense, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for the Federation. They had become so dependent on their technological superiority that they had forgotten the most important lesson of all. True power comes not from the tools you possess, but from the wisdom to use them properly. The next few hours would teach them that lesson, and the galaxy would never be the same. Protocol Omega's initiation sent ripples through the quantum fabric of space itself. The Federation ships glowed with an otherworldly energy as they channeled their remaining element 775 reserves into what they believed would be Earth's final moment. But in the hardened bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Sarah Chen and her team watched with calculated anticipation. Energy buildup detected, Dr. Wilson announced, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. They're committing everything they have to this strike, just as we predicted. General Rodriguez's avatar materialized in the command center, her expression fierce. All defense grids are synchronized. Project Oracle is standing by. Dr. Chen, commence Operation Thunderstrike. Sarah nodded, her mind racing through the countless simulations they had run for this exact scenario. Initiating quantum resonance field, preparing for energy redistribution. She turned to the assembled team. Remember, we only get one shot at this. The moment we begin the feedback loop, there's no stopping it. High above Earth, Commander Vextal watched with grim satisfaction as Protocol Omega reached critical mass. The combined power of his fleet's element 775 reserves would create a cascading reaction that would render Earth's atmosphere uninhabitable for millennia. Let this be a lesson, he broadcast to his fleet. None may challenge the Federation's dominion. But as the energy wave began to propagate, something unexpected happened. Instead of destroying Earth's atmosphere, the quantum energies seemed to hit an invisible barrier. More than that, they were being redirected, channeled, transformed. Sir, Vextal's science officer called out in panic. The humans, they're using our own energy against us. They've created some kind of quantum mirror. Sarah Chen's team had spent years studying the unique properties of element 775, discovering aspects of the material that the Federation, in their arrogance, had never even considered. They had learned that quantum energy could be not just reflected, but amplified and redirected through precisely calibrated fields. Quantum resonance at maximum, Dr. Wilson reported. Field stability at 98%. We're ready for Phase 2. Sarah took a deep breath. Initiate the Thunderstrike protocol. Across Earth's surface, hidden quantum arrays activated simultaneously. The energy from Protocol Omega, instead of destroying the planet, was captured and channeled through these arrays, amplified by Earth's own vast reserves of element 775. The result was spectacular and terrifying. A massive quantum wave erupted from Earth, encompassing the Federation fleet in a sphere of pure energy. But this was no simple attack. It was a precisely calculated strike designed to target the very technology the Federation relied upon. By the founders, Vextol whispered as he watched his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled. The quantum wave wasn't destroying his ships, it was rewriting their fundamental structure at the quantum level. One by one, the Federation's mighty warships transformed. Their weapon systems dissolved into base components. Their engines reverted to their most basic forms. Every piece of technology that relied on element 775 was neutralized, rendered inert by humanity's superior understanding of the material's properties. In the command center, Sarah monitored the process with intense concentration. Energy conversion holding steady. Quantum reformation proceeding as calculated. She turned to General Rodriguez's hologram. It's working exactly as we planned. The Federation fleet is being effectively quarantined from their own technology. But Operation Thunderstrike wasn't just about neutralizing the immediate threat. Hidden within the quantum wave was a more subtle weapon: information. As the wave transformed the Federation ships, it also transmitted the truth about humanity's achievements to every corner of the galaxy. The Federation's carefully maintained image of technological superiority was shattered. Across countless worlds, subjugated species learned that the Federation's monopoly on element 775 technology had been broken. More importantly, they learned that resistance was possible. "We're receiving transmissions," Dr. Wilson announced, his voice filled with excitement. "Other civilizations. They're reaching out. The Federation's client species are declaring independence. Some are offering alliance." General Rodriguez smiled grimly. And so the house of cards begins to fall. In his now powerless flagship, Commander Vextol received the final transmission from the Federation Council. Their message was brief and clear: retreat. The Federation's greatest fleet had been humbled, their ultimate weapon turned against them, and their galactic authority was crumbling. As the Federation ships limped away from Earth under minimal power, Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of the command center, watching the dawn break over the mountains. Humanity had not only survived its first major interstellar conflict, it had emerged as a force that would reshape the galaxy. "What happens now?" Dr. Wilson asked, joining her at the window. Sarah's expression was thoughtful. "Now comes the hard part. We've shown the galaxy that the Federation isn't invincible. But with that knowledge comes responsibility. We need to be better than they were. We need to help build something new." The sun rose over Earth, its light catching the dormant Federation ships as they retreated. Operation Thunderstrike had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations, but Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in spectacular fashion. The real challenge would be proving they deserved their place among the stars. The week following Operation Thunderstrike transformed the galaxy's political landscape more drastically than the previous 1,000 years of Federation rule. Sarah Chen found herself working 20-hour days, coordinating with newly liberated species and managing the flood of diplomatic requests pouring in from across the stars. Another delegation requesting immediate audience, Dr. Wilson reported, adding yet another holographic notification to the already crowded air around Sarah's desk. The Centauri Collective. They're offering advanced biotechnology in exchange for our element 775 insights. Sarah rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of Earth's sudden prominence in galactic affairs. Add them to the priority list. But make it clear, we're not looking to become the next Federation. Our goal is cooperation, not dominance. In the newly established Galactic Communications Center, General Rodriguez was handling a different kind of crisis. The Federation's retreat had left a power vacuum, and dozens of formerly subjugated species were now fighting over the remnants of Federation technology. "The Arcturus sector is on the brink of civil war," her aide reported. 3 different species are claiming rights to the Federation's abandoned shipyards. Rodriguez studied the tactical display, watching as various factions positioned their forces. "Have we received any response from the Federation Council?" "Only silence. Our intelligence suggests they're facing internal collapse." Several member species are demanding answers about how they could have mishandled the Earth situation so badly. Meanwhile, aboard the retreating Federation flagship, Commander Vextall faced his own reckoning. The ship's backup systems provided minimal life support and propulsion, but most of his mighty vessel was now little more than an ornate shell, its advanced technology rendered useless by humanity's quantum strike. "The Council demands your presence," his communications officer reported, her metallic scales dulled with stress. "They're convening an emergency session to determine the Federation's response to this situation." Vextall's crystalline features darkened. Response. What response can there be? The humans didn't just defeat us. They revealed the fundamental lie at the heart of our power. The Federation's authority was built on our supposed mastery of element 775 technology. Now that mastery has been proven false. Back on Earth, Sarah's team made a breakthrough that would further reshape the galactic balance of power. Dr. Wilson burst into her office, his usually calm demeanor shattered by excitement. "We've cracked it," he exclaimed, projecting a complex series of equations into the air. "The Federation's database, combined with our own research, we've figured out how to synthesize element 775. Sarah's eyes widened as she studied the equations. The Federation had always claimed that element 775 could only be found in naturally occurring deposits, making it a finite and precious resource. The ability to synthesize it would change everything. "Have you verified this?" she asked, her mind already racing with the implications. "3 successful tests already. The synthetic version is actually more stable than the natural element. We can produce it anywhere with the right equipment." The news spread quickly through Earth's leadership. General Rodriguez immediately recognized the strategic importance. "This changes the game entirely," she declared in an emergency council meeting. The Federation's power was built on controlling access to element 775. If we can teach others to synthesize it, we can ensure no one ever monopolizes this technology again, Sarah finished. But with this discovery came a crucial decision. Earth's leaders debated intensely over how to proceed. Some argued for keeping the synthesis process secret, using it to establish Earth as the new dominant power. Others pushed for immediately sharing the knowledge with all species. Sarah Chen found herself at the center of this debate, defending a middle path. "We can't repeat the Federation's mistakes," she argued. "But we also can't just release this knowledge without responsibility. We need to establish a new framework for cooperation." Her proposal was ambitious. A galactic scientific council, open to all species, dedicated to sharing knowledge and ensuring technology, was used for the benefit of all. Earth would share the synthesis process, but through a carefully managed program that included ethical oversight and mutual defense agreements. As Earth's leadership debated, the galaxy continued to evolve. Former Federation client species began forming new alliances. Some reached out to Earth for protection, while others watched warily, uncertain whether to trust this young species that had so suddenly proved its power. The Federation itself was splintering. Several member species, impressed by humanity's handling of the situation, secretly reached out to establish independent diplomatic relations. Others, clinging to the old order, began fortifying their territories against what they saw as the rising human threat. General Rodriguez's intelligence network reported increasing unrest in the outer systems. "We're approaching a tipping point," she warned. "The next few days will determine whether the galaxy descends into chaos or emerges into a new era of cooperation." Sarah Chen stood at her familiar window in the Rocky Mountain Command Center, watching the stars become visible in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, countless species were waiting to see what humanity would do next. The Federation's attack had forced Earth to reveal its capabilities, but now they had to prove they deserved the power they had demonstrated. "We didn't ask for this responsibility," she murmured to herself, "but we can't walk away from it either." The decision they would make about sharing the element 775 synthesis process would shape the galaxy for generations to come. Sarah knew that whatever path they chose, Earth's isolation was over. They were now part of something much larger, and their next steps would echo across the stars. The new Galactic Assembly convened in a massive space station orbiting Earth's moon, a neutral ground chosen to symbolize humanity's commitment to cooperation rather than dominance. Representatives from over 200 species filled the chamber, their diverse forms a testament to the galaxy's rich variety of life. At the center of it all stood Sarah Chen, preparing to present Earth's vision for the future. The Federation's greatest crime wasn't their conquest. She began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber through advanced translation systems. It was their suppression of knowledge. They didn't just control element 775. They prevented countless species from reaching their full potential. The assembled delegates stirred, many of them former Federation subjects who had experienced this suppression firsthand. Among them sat several crystalline beings, Federation Council members who had chosen to break away and support the new order. General Rodriguez, standing at attention near Earth's delegation, watched the reactions carefully. The past month had been tense, with several former Federation strongholds threatening military action. But the promise of shared knowledge had proven more powerful than the threat of force. "We have confirmed what many of you suspected," Sarah continued, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber with swirling molecular structures. Element 775 is not unique to Earth. The Federation's claims about its rarity were deliberately misleading. More importantly, we have developed a process to synthesize it. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Dr. Wilson, seated among Earth's scientific advisors, smiled slightly. They had spent weeks preparing for this moment, knowing it would change the galaxy forever. "But we're not here to replace one monopoly with another." Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. "Earth proposes the establishment of the Galactic Scientific Cooperative. All member species will have access to element 775 synthesis technology, along with the full database of research we've compiled." A tall, ethereal being from the Andromeda arm rose to speak. "And what does Earth want in return for this generosity?" Sarah's response was ready. "Partnership, protection, progress. We've seen what happens when advanced technology is controlled by a few. The Federation's fall proves that no single species should have that kind of power. Instead, we propose a system of shared advancement." The details of Earth's proposal unfolded over the next several hours. The Galactic Scientific Cooperative would be governed by representatives from all member species. Technology sharing would be mandatory, but with safeguards to prevent military abuse. Most importantly, a new defensive alliance would ensure that no power could ever again threaten the freedom of member worlds. In his private chamber aboard the station, former Federation Commander Vextal watched the proceedings with a mixture of bitterness and admiration. "They're actually doing it," he murmured to his aide. "They're dismantling centuries of power structures not through force, but through cooperation." "Is that why you chose to defect?" his aide asked quietly. Vextal's crystalline features shifted thoughtfully. "I served the Federation because I believed in order. But these humans, they've shown us a different kind of order, one built on trust rather than fear." Back in the assembly chamber, the voting began. One by one, species that had been enemies for generations found themselves aligned in support of Earth's proposal. The few holdouts, mostly former Federation hardliners, found themselves increasingly isolated. Dr. Wilson leaned over to Sarah during a brief recess. "It's working better than we hoped. Even the Proxima Collective is on board, and they haven't signed a treaty in 500 years. Sarah nodded, but her expression remained serious. "This is just the beginning. We're asking these species to trust each other after generations of conflict. It won't be easy." General Rodriguez joined them, her uniform adorned with new insignia representing Earth's leadership of the Defensive Alliance. The first joint patrol fleets are already being assembled. Former Federation worlds are volunteering their ships and crews. They're calling it the Liberation Force. As the final votes were tallied, Sarah Chen stood once more before the assembly. The chamber fell silent, every being present aware they were witnessing the historic moment. "The motion passes," she announced, her voice steady despite the emotion of the moment. "The Galactic Scientific Cooperative is hereby established. As of this moment, the knowledge and resources needed for Element 775 synthesis will be made available to all member worlds." The chamber erupted in celebration. Species that had never been able to interact as equals found themselves sharing in a moment of universal triumph. The age of Federation dominance was truly over. In the observation dome above the chamber, Sarah finally allowed herself a moment of private reflection. Earth had faced extinction and emerged not just victorious, but as a catalyst for galactic change. They had proved that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons, but their ability to imagine and work toward a better future. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Dr. Wilson said, joining her at the window. Below them, Earth shone like a blue jewel against the black of space. "We've changed everything," Sarah replied softly. "Now we have to make it work." "We will," he assured her. "Not because we're stronger or smarter, but because we've given the galaxy something it never had under the Federation." "What's that?" "Hope." As celebrations continued throughout the station, messages of support poured in from across the galaxy. Former enemies began sharing technology and resources. Trade routes reopened. Cultural exchanges flourished. The universe was entering a new age, and humanity had helped light the way. The Federation's attempt to subjugate Earth had failed spectacularly. Instead of finding an easy conquest, they had awakened a force for change that would reshape the galaxy. Humanity had proven that true power lies not in domination, but in the ability to unite, to share, and to grow together. As the first ships of the new Liberation Force prepared for their inaugural patrol, Sarah Chen knew that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. But for the first time in galactic history, they would face those challenges not as isolated species fighting for dominance, but as partners in a grand adventure of discovery and cooperation.